Well, welcome and thanks for joining us for the 94th episode of Lightbulb Moments, a weekly financial roundtable. Remember, money's not the most important thing in life, but it is like oxygen on the gotta have it scale. I'm Tom Kuhn from Qnity. We are here to take what's complicated, overwhelming, and confusing to creating a simpler and clearer path towards greater financial wellness, using the new rules of engagement, which is simple, visual, and actionable. And today, our guest spotlight will be Lynn McNeese of ISPA, the leading association for spas. I think you're going to love to meet Lynn. I can't wait to get to her. We'll get to her in a few minutes. Last week, we had Carrie Perkins as a guest spotlight. And then we also had Myra Reddy, from PBA, where she said data is the number one thing. Data is the number one thing we have. We need to communicate and participate to make our voices heard, which is a great segue into the compensation study that is in progress right now. There's a lot of press out on this. There's a lot of social media, whatever. At the end of the day, we've got one clear call to action, and that's get people to participate in the study. We need the data, and we're off to a great start. Enrollment is going to close in upcoming weeks. If you have not already signed up to be a company that participates in the study, you could use this QR code. Otherwise, you can go to our website and just look at the tab that says data. And really what we'd like to do is we want to change the narrative using actual data in terms of what a career in beauty and wellness looks like, because the data is very skewed and suffers from some flaws. To be in the study, you actually will get a report with the first industry-specific data for service providers on several key metrics, as well as education on what to do with the data. Back to Qnity for a moment. So we are financial wellness for beauty, financial wellness for pro beauty and wellness, students, employees, and leaders. We do have an upcoming workshop. This is a financial management workshop that's coming up very soon in Minnesota. It's called Money SBO. It's appropriate for owners and managers. We've got a great turnout already. We do have some openings. So if you're interested in signing up for that and learning more, you can go to the QR code. You could reach out to a member of our team, or you could go to our website. Candace recently did a sneak peek on this. Candace is a great educator and has the credibility of being a small business owner that has learned the finance function organically the hard way. And she is really amazing at how she's able to make this information approachable and stick. Also, Money Pro, we have recently launched. We're super excited about this. This is financial wellness for employees. I showed this last week too, but I love seeing it again. And this is really, as described by Jill Craven down in Atlanta, it's a creatively visual way to make learning about personal finances interesting and fun. So if you haven't enrolled for Money Pro to bring it to your team to help provide a benefit that your employees will really care about and use, you should sign up for that. It will help employees and employers, as well as take away some of the myths and confusion that will help people better understand their compensation, their paychecks, and understand what financial wellness looks for them. We have some great new tools that are in this course. This is a sneak peek. We have a tracker specifically, Qnity sort of signature design-driven tracking tool that will help people track not only their money metrics that make a difference in their lives and the lives of their families, but also a money action tracker so that there's steps that are taken forward to greater financial wellness. Also, of course, we have the Money for Students that is in that's available. We've already up to almost 100 campuses in less than a year. That's amazing. I think we launched it a year ago tomorrow. So very excited about that. It features our 9-grid as a core learning tool in that course. In fact, all of our courses use this simple and visual tool. Also 2 to 10, I think early registration expired. If you qualify for 2 to 10, Michelle will put in the chat how to register for it, and super excited about getting the group back together in St. Pete, Florida, coming up in the middle of October. All right, to prosper, manage your ATM, your attention, time, and money. It's not lost on us how valuable your time is. So thanks for joining us today. And I'm sure you'll get plenty out of this session. Past recordings are posted on our portal as well as on YouTube. You can check out previous episodes. And so if you're listening to a previous episode or you didn't join us today, thank you very much. And hope you get much out of it through the YouTube. I have this slide up here. We originally had two roundtables. We had one for salons and spas and the other one for schools, and we merged them together. And but I want to call out something today that relates to the future. If you look at the icon on the right there, it says salons and spas. With today, I would like to put a stake in the ground going forward that we are going to be much more intentional about bringing spa into this community. The spa industry has so many lessons that apply to salons and schools and vice versa. So what a great kickoff into a part of the business that we're very passionate about, excited about, and want to be more intentional going forward so that our content, our guests, et cetera, are relevant for all elements of beauty and wellness, okay? Now, light bulb moment. All right, so what's my light bulb moment for the week? Well, usually it's something that's very fresh and top of mind. And what I'd like to do is bring Sonia Eklund to the conversation from our team. Good morning, Sonia. How are you today?
Good morning, Tom. I'm great.
So we, as part of the compensation study, we assembled a think tank. And that was really on the guidance of several people that we solicited feedback on in terms of how to make sure the compensation study is rich, it's relevant, and it has the right type of representation behind it to give the credibility that's needed that we're all looking for. So we assembled this think tank, and I got to tell you, Sonia, I mean, we've assembled this group over recent weeks, and we've looked at various different options, and but yesterday we had them all together. What was your reaction when this group was together yesterday?
It is a phenomenal, brilliant, dynamic group of people. We had a wonderful conversation, and I'm really excited to continue meeting with them.
It was just screaming with credentials. I was like blown away. I mean, I knew all the credentials, but a lot of them had a chance to unpack that a little bit more for us. And it was really inspiring, is what I would say.
Absolutely. There's a lot of passion there. Everybody's really working towards a common goal.
Smart in heart, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now, if you notice in the bottom left-hand corner, we have Stern Neil, PhD. He's in a slightly different background shade. That is because Stern Neil is not only a member of the think tank, but he's actually helping us in the study. And helping us with writing the report, research, and he's a very high credential marketing professor and researcher, PhD, and so now the only one that was absent yesterday for our first session was Al Osborne. I think it's Dr. Al Osborne, isn't it? Okay. And we're talking to Al today. Al is recently retired from UCLA. He's off on vacation, but we're going to connect with him today. So my light bulb moment is when you ask people show up, and we ask these people and they have showed up big time. So so thankful for their help and input in the compensation study. And my light bulb moment is that, wow, there are a lot of smart and passionate people out there that are willing to help and to really make sure that the narrative about pro beauty changes. So. All right, so let us now get on to introducing our guest, Lynn McNeese. Good morning, Lynn. How are you today?
I'm great, Tom. Thanks for having me.
There you are. Well, boy, I have been wanting to have you as a guest for a very long time, and we have certainly had representation from the spa industry. We've had spa-related conversation topics, but in terms of us entering a new era, I thought what a great way to kick off us working more in the spa industry with having you as a guest today. So,
well, thank you. I loved Myra's quote as well, so thank you for sharing that.
Now, you are an amazing lady, and but before we get to things that are important, let's get to something really important and something that we share as families, and that's a love of dachshund dogs. Sorry, I could not resist. Who are these canine
Oh my God.
companions of yours?
That was a private email to you, Tom. Shame on you.
Okay, so
The one on the left, that's not very well behaved little doggies there, but we've got Coulter Bay and Moose, Wyoming, 2 long hair miniature dachshunds.
all right. So that would be one of my only a rare faux pas in the history of this, but we will certainly edit out the dogs if those were private. My apologies.
They're
and my
not
wife,
laying appropriate spot there. They're all sweet now, and you have a love of dachshunds yourself, I know.
Yes, and my wife believes they're like potato chips. You can't just have one. So
True, it's true.
now, there's a lot of things we can talk about today, and there will be several things we talk about today. But to me, the recent release of the 23rd ISPA study, which is hot off the press, I think it was just released within the last month, is, I think, very timely, very relevant. And so we'll spend a little bit of time talking about that today, okay?
That's great. I love that.
And just to set the record right, so you are the president of ISPA, and the lens that you look at with this report is not necessarily an analytical approach, but you're going to take it more like high level findings and what that looks like. So not necessarily about all the facts and figures, but just high level understanding. But before we get to that, tell us a little bit about ISPA and your role there.
Sure. Thank you so much. So the International Spa Association was established in 1991 to really help define an industry. It's a trade organization, and our members are spa owners and operators from all different sectors, actually around the world. We're in dozens and dozens of countries now. And what's been interesting is that several of the folks on this call today might remember when we were trying to convince the media we weren't hot tubs. And we certainly have come a long way. But the reason that we've partnered with PricewaterhouseCoopers for decades now was really to be able to define that industry and put some economic parameters around the impact of that industry. So I serve as the chief staff officer. I'm an association management professional, not really a spa professional, but I serve ISPA and report to the board of directors. Actually, I mentioned this to you before, but most folks don't know I work in an association management company where we manage 12 other associations in very different industries, and I can really learn from them as well.
Now, there's one interesting part of your background. There's a lot of interesting parts, but you worked in the White House for a while. Is that correct?
I did. Really right out of college, went into there and worked with the White House Fellows Program, which is a nonpartisan fellowship program, very competitive. Lyndon Johnson established it in '64 to really bring young professionals into DC and help them. They work alongside a cabinet secretary for a year, and then they're supposed to go back home and teach what they learned to their communities and kind of spread that spirit of serving your country. It was great.
So I like to distinguish between the spa and salon industries in a couple relevant categories, and I've been very candid about this over the years. In many ways, I feel the spa industry is ahead of the salon industry in a couple of very clear, tangible ways. Number one, the spa industry has published a standardized way of reporting financials. All right. There's a full book on it, and I have the book with me. In fact, it's right over there. It's the Uniform System of Financial Reporting for Spas. Salon industry does not have a uniform way of reporting financials. Big gap in the salon industry. The other one, which is more relevant for today's conversation, is a deep commitment to data and study. And so this is 23 years of doing this study with PricewaterhouseCoopers, a very elite established firm, part of my alumni, by the way. But that is a great commitment.
Well, and we really felt like we had to do that in order to define an industry and really separate ourselves from all the different parts that are now a very large industry around wellness. But we've stayed very true to our niche, and that is spa. And you're right, we really had to figure out how we define those different sectors, the uniform system of financial reporting. We've got amazing volunteers in our membership that put textbook after textbook together to really help our members operate a more profitable and successful business.
Well, it's a shout out to you and the entire ISPA community. Now, let's do a little bit of a level set in terms of, because we're going to get into the report, okay?
Yeah.
And so this report, I actually have, just in the interest of describing to the audience here, we have the report at Qnity because we are ISPA members.
Right.
And a way that you get the report is to become an ISPA member. You have given me permission to share certain things today. Thank you for that. Let's first of all, I do a level set in terms of the different categories of spas. I think that's really important. And it defines like a day spa versus a club spa. So could you sort of list off maybe some of the general categories? Because much of the report is broken down by the categories, the segmentation.
Right, which is very important because it really has changed over the years. And just to clarify one thing you said, it is a members only report, but there are non-members that PwC certainly goes out and targets because we need a huge data set to really be able to make it comparable data. PwC has a very high bar in what they consider data. And I kind of go back to a keynote speaker we've had twice now over the last 20 plus years with Jim Collins. And it was Jim Collins who wrote Good to Great. I'm sure you're familiar with him. He's the one that really encouraged us to be data driven. And we did, we dug deep. And in order to really self-define yourself, whether you are a resort hotel or a destination or a day spa, mineral springs, club spa, and then you self-describe that. So we were not going to dictate to you what kind of spa you thought you were. But in order to be able to dig deeper into the data and compare yourself to others that are like you, we felt that defining that different segments was critical.
Yeah, no, that's great. And you gave
And
us
it was
some
a
of
lot
this.
of debate. It was a lot of debate, as you can imagine, trying to define those different categories.
It was.
Yes, yes, yes.
Well, I can relate to that because I feel like I'm part of some debates right now in terms of segmenting the salon industry. And I'm hoping that we move past that and are able to just say, you know, these are the segments and not argue, well, is this a segment or not? And so it's I almost find that somewhat encouraging to see that it was not a silky smooth process done.
Yeah, sometimes I think it's important to start where what you have in common as opposed to what you don't have in common, and then build from there. And originally, the International Spa Association was very heavily led by destination spas, and getting day spas in was a little bit of a challenge. And they really saw them as competition and not gateway to, not everybody could afford a week at Golden Door or Canyon Ranch. So sometimes you start at a gadabout and then you graduate, so to speak, into a Canyon Ranch. So there really was a lot of tug and pull in the early days on how to define those segments. So don't worry, you're not alone in that.
So what jumped out at you from the study? I mean, what were some of the findings or ahas that you think sort of jumped off the page for you?
Yeah, lots of light bulb moments post-COVID for sure. And one thing that I'll say that really shout out to the ISPA leadership and volunteer board of directors, even through a pandemic with 3 years without an ISPA conference, which is where our revenue comes from, we kept investing heavily in the research because we knew years from now, you would want to look back and see what the economic impact of COVID was on the industry. So when we didn't have the money, but we dug deep and luckily had reserves to be able to keep that going. So I think really the interesting thing is the amazing V-shaped recovery we've seen. I mean, we are back at 18.1 billion in revenues in the U.S., still shy of our all-time high of 19.1 billion. But wow, what a jump from when we were down, even this year alone, a 50%, year over year, 50% increase in revenues. And we certainly know that's because a lot of spas were shut down. but that's a quick comeback. And I think one of the light bulb moments for me really was that of this consumer spa goers, 58% of them visited a spa for the first time since the pandemic. So if you think about all those new spa goers that are coming in the door because they're focused on their overall health and well-being, that's a good sign for the industry moving forward.
Yeah, I wanted to clarify this because just to be clear, what you're saying is that the percentage you gave us, these are people that had never been to a spa before.
Visited a spa for the first time. And we've also seen that there's a lot of consumers that are not comfortable coming back for crowds, for groups. You know, we're not back to our number of visits yet. We're at 173 million visits. That's still 20 million down from our all-time high. But 30% of those consumers are reporting that they are frustrated with the lack of ability to get into a spa for the treatment that they want at the time that they want. And that really goes back to demand, because we're seeing this influx of new spa goers. And across the board, since we've been doing research since day one, the number one reason people go is to learn how to manage their stress. And we know that's an all-time high. COVID really pushed, well-being and self-care into the forefront, but the spas are having a very difficult time keeping up with the demand, which is good news and bad news if those consumers are leaving and going somewhere else, or having a therapist come in their house or doing something that's not at a spa. That's not good news.
And is the reason for the inability to get in staffing related more than anything else?
No doubt, no doubt. ISPA was really focused on staffing before we ever even heard of COVID. We actually were having a talent symposium in Santa Barbara back in, 2020. That was the first event we canceled because we needed to figure out how we could get more folks into the industry, not just licensed therapists, because I think with everything happening with the Interstate Compact, that's going to really help that. We have a lot of work to do, but that's going to really help it. But they're looking for spa managers, spa directors, front desk attendants, locker room attendants. I'm traveling now, as I think you are, and there's still hotels that aren't operating 7 days a week. They're only open 5 days a week. And that's because their restaurants are closed, their fitness centers are closed, and that's because they can't get staff.
You dig a little bit deeper. It sounds like massage is the biggest gap right there. That's where the biggest job.
Well, PricewaterhouseCoopers reported in this last report that there's 29,000 open massage therapist appointment positions within the spa industry right now. And that's a lot. And we're continuing to see that build. We saw a lot of retirement, early departures during COVID. Everybody keeps saying, where did all these people go? And you've heard about the great resignation and then the great regret. And we're really focused on the great attraction, trying to figure out how we can get people back into hospitality, not just as a hands-on licensed therapist, but get in hospitality as a career. There's so many ways you can go in that within the spa space.
You had some interesting ways to get through some creative ways to deal with high consumer demand and low supply. That is transferable not only to spas, but also would fit over to salons too. You want to go through some of those?
Yeah, I think you're referring to if you don't really have some of the creative ways that you can bridge the gap as you're out there looking for talent. And we not only do our annual research with PricewaterhouseCoopers, but we also do monthly snapshot surveys with our members, and they're very topic generated. And any member that completes the survey, 1 week later, you get the results. And it is so rich with great ideas. We know that our members love to learn from their other peers. So that's what we try to do there. But there are folks doing a lot of hands-on treatments, which I know can be very controversial in the spa world, but it's a great, just a segue, whether it's halotherapy or cryotherapy or a taking the waters tour within resort hotels, lots of different things that our technology companies have been very creative with, whether it's a new treatment, infrared saunas, all kinds of things that you can charge the guests for and drive revenue at the same time that you're trying to backfill your licensed therapists. And I mentioned the Interstate Compact, and I want to come back to that real quickly because I don't know that everyone's aware of
Yeah, I
the
was going to ask you about that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, the Department of Defense is fast tracking 7 industries, and those are licensed industries. And the reason that the Department of Defense is behind it is because of military spouses, and that they tend to move every 2 years. And if you were a nail tech or a massage therapist or a physical therapist or dental hygienist, you would have to go to school all over again and get a license in that state where you move to. So similar to your driver's license, it now, if you have a massage therapy license or aesthetic license, nail tech, you'll be able to move state to state, which is critical for getting young people in. You can't have a young person go through massage school and tell them they can't leave their hometown. They won't be interested in that. So the legislation has been drafted. We've never seen anything from the government move this quickly. So we're blessed for that. And that we're hoping by mid 2023, it will be enacted.
As Jan said, finally, yeah.
Yeah, it'll be up to us from a grassroots level to make sure that our states enact it, because it's only as good as the number of states that allow the Interstate Compact. But stay tuned for more, and definitely follow ISPA on that, because there's a lot of really smart people behind that.
All right, let's go through some findings. These are some summaries. So staffing, I'm just going to read a couple things here. SPA's identified 2 main opportunities. First, there's a shortage of qualified, experienced talent, not enough people training, not enough schools. In particular, massage therapists are in short supply, number 1.
Yeah.
Number 2, there's an opportunity, and I want to focus on this one. Second, there's an opportunity to enhance staff retention, putting more focus on staff well-being and showing that staff are appreciated. Workplace wellness is the 4 in that regard.
There's a lot. I mean, we just did a snapshot survey on this, and the data that we're getting from our members is unbelievable on what they're doing to retain their current teams. You know, it's tough. You have COVID and you say, okay, thanks for playing. Everybody go home. You're furloughed. And then when it's over, you're begging them to come back. They don't forget the way they were treated at that time. And so we have a pretty big bridge. I was one of our speakers at ISPA conference. Emlyn with a core talked about, we really need to stop and think about how we treated our teams now that we are wondering where they all went, you know. So what are we doing now to engage and really get them to understand and put our arms around them, taking care of them first? There was a little bit of time there that we were offering all these sign-on bonuses to new staff. Well, that was just salt in the wound to the people that, you know, kept their hands on the rope during COVID and did the heavy lifting. So the light bulb's really been turned inward on within these spas to make sure that they're really taking care of the teams that they have. And that is, I mean, I can't even talk about the creativity that I've heard around this, but it's allowing them to use full facilities, use the gym, you know, really revamping your lunchroom or snack breaks, or giving stipends for them to go to another spa and experience all the treatments, paid time off, paid community service. I mean, you name it, really surveying the teams that you have within your property or spa, because I think of resort hotels are offering amazing things. And even if you're a day spa, but I think it really starts with being data driven. Everything does. So if you need to ask your teams what's important to them, are you offering something to them that you think is important or that is expensive for you that they don't really care about? So if you really want to retain them, listen to what they need, and then do your very best to back in and offer that to them.
You know,
Right.
part of the phase 1 of the compensation studies, we asked what benefits were being provided. And we found the usual suspects, health insurance, paid time off, et cetera, et cetera. On the bottom of the list was a tie. One is very near and dear to us, and that's financial wellness.
Yeah.
Which is a benefit that is screaming in importance and relevance. And innovative companies, and of course, in the interest of transparency, we offer a program on that.
Right.
The second area is mental health.
Right.
And so those 2 areas of benefits were bottom of the list. So I'm going to expect that we're going to see a lot more adoption in those 2 areas. And, you know, for this conversation, more wellness. And I'm going to read something else out of the study. The range of opportunities mentioned, this is under the topic of well-being, include creating a wellness culture, countering the mental health effects of recent years, anxiety, stress, isolation, education to move the perception of spas away from the pampering image and medical services. Any
Right.
comments about that?
Yeah, I couldn't agree with that more. And I think we've put our therapists, I know we have put our therapists on the front line with guests that probably haven't been touched in a long time or feeling heard, and they're going through a lot. And when you get them behind closed doors, our therapists are empathetic. They're taking all of that in. And are we offering something back to them? Even the spa directors, when the therapists go to the spa directors, not sure that the spa directors have the tools to help the therapist manage, the just the emotion that's coming out of people. It's a lot to take in. And if we're not providing the tools there, mental health is one of the number one challenges, no matter what industry you're in right now. If you're just a manager or just love people, that's what we're all dealing with because we've gone through something unprecedented.
Also, the report talks about safe space for all. Spas want to be known as trusted safe havens in a time of anxiety. A time of anxiety. Okay. Safety has been central to reopening and returning to normal. Spas have navigated working with those who won't get vaccinated, vaccine mandates, lifting restrictions, accommodating groups safely, mitigating staff and guest fears of COVID outbreak worries.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, kind of going back to the mental health thing. The study showed that 60% of the spa goers had identified they had downloaded an app to deal with mental health and well-being. So I think
Whoa. Would you say that again?
60% of spa goers had downloaded an app to focus on their mental health and well-being. So if you offer nothing else to your own employees or your guests, we're all using QR codes, put a QR code there for whether it's Calm or there's so many to choose from. But if you think about that's a cry for help, that people want those tools. And that's what we need to be making sure that our teams on property know signs to recognize when someone is in trouble. And that's really outside of our scope, but it's a responsibility that's a heavy one for the spa industry for sure.
Yeah. I'm looking at some other findings here and going over to growth here for a moment. And, these are some drilling down a little bit deeper, and I'm not necessarily expecting a comment, but just different things that average revenue per visit increased sharply by 7.1% from $97.50 to $104.50 in 2021.
Right. And we know our members across the board have increased pricing. And that is because of demand. You have surge pricing, and it's very similar to what the airlines do, right? Demand pricing is key. But at some point, that's not going to work anymore, because at some point the consumer is going to say, at 104, that's not what a 90-minute massage costs in Miami. That's the average across the country. So you can imagine there's some big swings there. And at some point the consumer is going to say no, especially if you go there and all your amenities aren't open. But, if the steam sauna in the thick of COVID, that stuff wasn't even open. So we just need to be very careful. And I think you made the comment about wellness and kind of getting caught in the consumers were asked how they felt about the touchless treatments. And they thought that it was fine, but the number one reason they go was for that human interaction, human touch. So for the short term or a compliment, I think we're going to see it grow. But is it a long-term fix? Absolutely not. Spa is about hands-on healing, and that's what we need to remember for sure.
So these average revenue per visit that I gave you is 2021, and
Right.
I'm going to guess when we look at next year's report, that's going to rise sharply,
Right.
because of all the price increases in 2022 that will come out in the next report.
Well, not only price increases, Tom, but also expense increases. If you look at supply chain, and we know that our resource partner members on the flip side, the skincare products, the massage oils and things like that. I mean, we have a nail polish company that hasn't been able to sell anything because they can't find the brushes to go in their nail polish. I mean, they just can't get them. So I think the supply issue is going to also be a big thing in the report in the future as well.
There's something else that I just really loved about the report and the PwC reports, and it's the Big Five. And it's like, well, what's the Big Five? It's like, well, the Big Five is each year the PwC, the report that ISPA commissions PwC is they always report 5 key metrics. I asked for your permission to borrow that in some of the work we do. Actually, 3 of them are pretty much part of our core metrics anyway. So I'm going to list them off. Okay. So here are the Big Five that gets measured top line every year. It determines the size of the industry. Specifically, the Big Five are revenues, number of visits, revenue per visit. For those Qnity users of 2-number growth, anything sound familiar there? Client count and average ticket and revenues. But then what you do is you add 2 more, which I think are super relevant. Number of establishments and employment, headcount. Those are the Big Five.
Right. And we track closures too. And I think during COVID, that was really interesting. We drill down deep into employee. We really look at the top Big Five. Those don't deviate. Every other year, we dig into compensation. And it's interesting, PwC says that we're the longest term client that they have, the small little nonprofit, here we are, other than the Oscars. They have done it consistently for every year with us. So we're very proud of that. And every other year we do compensation, but our PwC team in Belfast talks about how they've never worked with another industry that has so many different compensation models. It's not just dozens. I mean, it's dozens of dozens. I mean, it's ridiculous. And so I think if we could do anything, if the industry could have a light bulb moment, it would be great to do another uniform system financial reporting, but do it for compensation. And I know we're not allowed to dictate compensation as a C6 or C3, but we could put models out there that most of our members could follow. It would make everyone's life easier, the spa director, also the therapists and the employees within the spa, because they would be able to compare themselves to others. But we're very complicated on a compensation structure.
Yeah. And as a former salon and spa owner myself, experienced firsthand on how many different compensations, even within a company, where there was grandfathered, grandmothered, uncled, aunts. I mean, there was all these different generations of, the Excel usage for compensation methods is just off the charts due to complexity. So did you just say that ISPA is second only to Oscars in terms of repetition of an annual? So, well, good. You're in good company there.
Yeah, isn't that fun?
What? Now,
I never knew that until Colin mentioned that to us a couple years ago. We love that. Well,
I think I'm going to be in Ireland next year. I might have to go take a little road trip and meet those gentlemen. They do a great job. You said C6. I mean, would you go back a little bit? What was that?
Yeah, so the International Spa Association is a nonprofit registered C6, and we also 501c6, and we also have a 501c3 arm, which is our foundation. And our auction raises money for the foundation, and that's at conference each year. And that drives the investment that we make on the research side. We've always funded that directly through the foundation from donations that our members generate.
All right. I have not looked at one chat comment, but I see a lot of stuff going on in the chat there, which I'm going to stay focused and present with you. What you might want to do is you might want to weigh in on that. Let me see if I have any other topics for you here today, because I could talk to you all day. And even our prep calls, it's like, oh my gosh, what time is it? We're supposed to be done by now. So, and I'm very inspired by the spa industry and your practices. And I do think that they are duplicatable to other industries, whether it's salon or whatever. And I do want to, you have given me permission to share some of these findings, which I will do in future weeks. I'll unpack the report because, you know, I want to dig deeper into it, not today, but there's just different specifics that, as you said, you go deeper into several areas. Like there's some
Right.
really interesting things relate to employment practices,
Right.
hours worked, full-time, part-time. So I'll be doing that in upcoming weeks. And, you know, I so appreciate being a member of ISPA, and this is not a commercial, you're not a sponsor or anything like that. It's just, I really believe that the work that you do is fantastic. And you've been there how many years, Lynn?
I actually probably, let's see, I started in 1996. So you can do the math on that.
Yeah, that's
Long time. I will say though, based on what you said about, you know, we do work with a lot of other associations within the company that I work for, everything from dog trainers to volleyball coaches to women in media. It's a very unique portfolio of associations, and that's by design. But we are very different, the spa industry, even in those groups, a lot of technology users and shell marketers. But the spa industry shares, I mean, just the snapshot survey that we send on a monthly basis, we ask a question and our members will tell you everything that they're doing. They don't feel closed off. They just don't feel competitive with what they're sharing. And we wouldn't be able to do what we do as an association if our members weren't so willing to be so thoughtful and open in what they do and share with PricewaterhouseCoopers too. So we're grateful for that. And that's unusual. And I can tell you that firsthand. So we're very, very proud of that.
Is there any question I didn't ask you today that I should have?
I mean, I don't think so. I think you've been really thorough. I think if there's things that any of our members want ISPA to be doing research on or digging deeper into, like compensation we mentioned earlier, we really have an amazing volunteer board of directors that their ears are always open, and we're very nimble. I know we probably feel like an aircraft carrier, but we behave a lot like a speedboat. We're very nimble in how we shift. And I think a good example of that, Tom, is when COVID shut down and we immediately put a team together that started working on a reopening toolkit, which has been used. It's been downloaded. I can't even tell you how many hundreds of thousands of times, but also by other industries and other countries as a role model for, because we knew we weren't prepared to shut down. So we figured we wouldn't be prepared to reopen either. So that's where the smart minds got together. And that's where an industry just shows that if we work hard together as a team and a community, that we can really lift each other up. So I think that's something to really hold in our hearts and be proud of, for sure.
You got some good questions here.
Okay.
Susan from Neroli. Good morning, Susan. Thanks for the question. New services for 2023? Question mark.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of the touchless ones that we talked about, and it's, you know, it's certainly going to be an investment if you invest in cryo machine or halotherapy or infrared, but there's great ways that you can do that, and really making sure that we're cross-training our therapists so that they may not be able to do massage, but they can do body treatments, and really partnering with your resource partners or your vendor member, we call resource partners, to get creative and offer different treatments that are out there. Remember, the number one treatment after all these years of research continues to be your hands-on basic massage and certainly a facial. So stay true to your core, and ask your customers what they want, because they're going to other spas besides yours or other salons. So ask them what they would like to see.
You answered another question that was in the chat, and that was top service by Rebecca. Rebecca, thanks for the question.
Yeah.
Ginger said, very encouraging as I plan to expand my spa department.
Yay, I love that. Way to go, Ginger.
I know Ginger very well. She's down in Louisiana. And then we've got some other comments in the chat that you might want to pay attention to. All right, we are going to close our segment. Just on standby if someone could get Kevin Lightheart ready, because I'm going to bring him into the conversation for just a moment. Lynn, you are an awesome guest. Will you come back sometime?
Yes, and thank you. You made it easy and fun. I really appreciate you, Tom, and I appreciate you being a member and all that you do for the industry. We're grateful for that.
Well, let's everybody give Lynn a virtual round of applause. Here is your $1 million light bulb and
Yay.
official admission into the Brain Trust. So bravo. Thanks again,
Thank
Lynn.
you. Thank you. You guys have a great day. Thank you, Tom.
All right. Kevin Lightheart. Good
Hey.
morning. How are you?
Good. Can you hear me?
Yes. Do we find you in the state of South Carolina today?
That's correct. South Carolina today.
All right. So Kevin, you are the Lightheart of Lightheart Sanders and Associates CPAs, and you're the tax guy in the firm, right?
That's correct. That's correct.
All right. You wanted to get some information out to the group. So we're going to call this Kevin's Corner. And
Until we come up with a better name, we'll go with that today. I apologize for my voice. I'm fighting some sinus issues and sinus drainage today, so hopefully I'm coming through clearly. Yeah, last week when Myra did her presentation and was talking about the FICA tax credit, it spurns in my mind the employee retention credit, or ERC, that we've been dealing with a lot as a firm lately. And most recently, and a lot of people don't know this, and that's why I threw this out to you last week, and you thought it'd be a good idea to take a few minutes today. And I know we're short on time today, but unlike a lot of the other free money that the government has been throwing at us the last couple of years with PPP, of course, we as CPAs love our acronyms, and the government does too, but PPP, ERC, but the ERC, unlike the PPP and some of the other monies that the government's been throwing at us, is taxable. The PPP money was not. The ERC money is. And if you go to the IRS's website, irs.gov, which actually is a very good website, surprisingly, when it comes to government entities, but actually it's a very good website, good information. There's a frequently asked question that that they have on various topics, but on this, the ERC specifically, it basically poses the question: is it income? And the way that the bill was passed is technically no, it's not income, but you have to go back and restate your tax return for the amount of earned income. I'm sorry, the ERC that you receive. You reduce your payroll expenses, and the way it reads is, why the ERC is not considered taxable income under Internal Revenue Code 280C, employer tax credits create a reduction in wages in the amount of the credit. This reduction occurs in the year the wages were paid. So a 2021 credit must be reflected on the 2021 tax return. So the ERC began in 2020. You can claim the credit for 20 and 21. It's still current where you can apply if you haven't, but the kicker is those credits, those quarters and those credits in the years that those credits apply for, attached to, you have to go back and amend. So what does that mean to the business owners and salon owners and school owners? If you got an ERC refund, applied for one, going to get one, you got to go back and amend your business tax return. Most small businesses have a flow-through return, an LLC or an S Corp. You got to amend the business return, then you got to amend the personal tax return that it flows to. A quick example, easy example, if you received $100,000 of ERC, you got to go back and amend your return, reduce your payroll expense for $100,000. If you're a 30% tax bracket, you got to pay back $30,000 of that $100,000 you received. Still better off, but you still have to amend your returns and pay back a portion of the money, unlike a lot of the other credits and monies the government has thrown out at you. One good thing though, back, I think it was April, the IRS did announce that, you think about, I go back and amend my returns, I got to owe taxes, are going to charge me interest and penalty. They said that they're going to waive those penalties for a taxpayer. So that's one nice thing about that. So I know, again, we're short on time, but I just want to throw that out there. A lot of business owners don't realize they need to amend their returns for the ERC monies that they're receiving.
It does. So I'm just do some simple math. So basically, let's say you have profitability of $100,000 and you filed your tax return. That's what the profits. What you're saying is that let's say that you had $100,000 tax credit. So what'll happen is that profitability will jump from 100 to 200,000. Okay.
Correct.
Because you take away an expense. Now, you just, you didn't suggest this, but let me see if there's a potential tax planning opportunity here, okay? So you can't avoid the taxes, okay? You know, tax avoidance is, you don't do it. You can delay it though, because if you said that they are not going to charge interest and penalties, is there a deadline for when the return needs to be made? So let's say that this is a big surprise and I don't have that $30,000 sitting in the bank, okay? And I got to do this. What is the sense of urgency on amending the return?
Well, there is none other than you don't want the IRS coming after you if you don't, if you're not proactive in this regard. And so as of right now, there's not a deadline per se. Usually to file an amended return, you're supposed to do it within 2 or 3 years, depending on the circumstances, what it is, statute of limitations, so forth. But in this case, the government's been surprisingly flexible and understanding through the last couple of years of COVID, which is good. But you're right, from the timing standpoint, especially if, okay, I'm going to owe this 30,000 or whatever it is, but I'm going to do my 2021 or 2022 return, and I got maybe a refund coming. Let me wait the timing where I have the cash flow to do it. So yeah, there is some flexibility of the timing of it all.
Kevin, we're going to have you as a frequent guest because we're going to move into tax planning season.
Yes, looking forward to it.
And we're going to have you on as a spotlight guest as we get into some opportunities for tax planning. So
just a reminder quick is if you haven't applied for that ERC, it's not too late, and we would be happy to help people out with that, or obviously they'd contact their own CPA. Just throw that out there as well.
All right, Kevin, thanks so much for everything.
My pleasure.
You do, and we'll see you next week.
Good to see you.
So let's see who we got with us today here. I'm super curious. I haven't been able to. Great group as usual here. Allison, Amanda, Andrew, Cheyenne, Christine, Connie, Dawn, Debbie, Aaron, Ginger, Holly, James, Jan, Jarrett, your partner, Kara, Carrie, Kelly, Con, Kip, Mark, Maz, Michelle, Megan. Hi, Megan from Gadabout. I saw that that comment from ISPA. That was interesting. It was awesome. Melissa, Michael, I'm going to send you an email this morning. Rebecca, Roman, Sam, Susan, Tanya, Terry, Todd, Vanessa, and Will. Some of our favorite people out there. All right, so let's just see here. What else do we have here to wrap things up? Shout out to Lightheart Sanders and Kevin. Thanks again. And financial wellness for Pro Beauty. Remember, if you have not joined the compensation study, please do so. We also have the upcoming Money SBO workshop. We actually will have a member of the Lightheart Sanders team with us in Minneapolis. Money Pro, which is financial wellness for team members, money for students, and then a shout out again to Kevin and Jared and Lightheart Sanders for being a sponsor of Lightbulb Moments. It is 54 minutes after the hour. It's a pleasure to be with all of you today. We will officially end this meeting. I'm going to stay on just for a little bit and read the chat. We'll see you next week. Have a great Labor Day weekend. And remember this, okay? September is the second new year. It is known as the second most common area to bring changes into your business and your life. The summer's ending, kids are back to school. It's sort of a great time for reset. And we are off next week. So we are going to be seeing, thank you for that. I thought we were on next week. Okay, we are on September 14th. Boy, that's too much time is passing. I'm going to miss all of you. So, all right, everybody, have a great Labor Day weekend. We'll see you in the second new year. Thanks again to Lynn, Kevin, and all of you for tuning in today. Those of you watching this on YouTube, we hope you enjoyed the episode. Bye now.